you check the children? Show a little match sometimes.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Sometimes. That is what
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Horror Show. I'm Cecil Laird.
I'm Susie Von Slaughter.
That's right, Susie is back to join me for a review, which is awesome. Let's all thank the horror gods that Susie was able to make it out for such an event.
You got lucky.
Yes, she doesn't often get time to do it, so I definitely love when she comes out and chats. And we especially, specifically her and I, really enjoy the horror comedy stuff. And so today we got access to a couple of day early screening of Totally Killer, which is directed by Nanachka Khan. I think I'm saying that right. And then it is starring Kiernan Shipka. Kiernan Shipka. Who actually she should be a household name at this point because she played Sabrina in the new Sabrina TV show on Netflix that ran from like 2016 to 2020 or something like that. So I really like her as an actress. She's one of those that can play a high school girl in through her 20s.
Yep.
Because she played a high school girl through the whole Sabrina show, and that was 4 years. And now she's playing a high school girl again about 4 years after the Sabrina show. So,
hey girl, you don't know.
Yeah, good for her.
Hey,
you know what I
her.
mean?
Yeah,
Shit.
she's white too.
I mean, I could pass for a high school boy still too.
Totally.
Right? Yeah.
I could pass for a high school boy too.
Yeah, probably pretty close.
Pretty close.
If you don't get your face all on.
Oh yeah, then I definitely could. For sure.
So yeah, guys, we're here to talk about Totally Killer. This is, as I said, a horror comedy that is about to drop. It's going to be available on Amazon Prime. So this is going to go up the day that it becomes available on Prime. So you guys, if you watch this review, you can jump over and watch this movie right away. So more power to you. But this started to get a bit of attention a few weeks back when the announcement about it came out. The announcement actually only came out about a month before the movie did. And it got a lot of flack at first because a lot of people were saying that this felt too much like The Final Girls from 2017, where they go into a Jason-like slasher movie. And I love that film, and the mother-daughter connection in that movie, like, it actually made me cry at the end. Like, it's a really fantastic movie.
Kind of forgot about it.
And yeah, and so a lot of people, including the director of The Final Girls, if I'm not mistaken, made a couple of comment tweets, or at least one, saying, didn't I make this movie in 2017? Something like that. I don't know, I could be talking out of my ass. I believe that happened. But yeah, so a lot of people were giving this movie shit, and then some other people were like, no, it's not the same. It's more like Back to the Future meets a slasher movie, not unlike Happy Death Day, right? That's not Back to the Future. That's just that's Groundhog Day, but with a slasher. So those two are different enough from The Final Girls that I think the comparison to Final Girls, outside of the time difference, because it's 80s slasher versus 2023, and the other one was 2017 versus 80s slasher. So that comparison, fine. But the mode of which it happens, like in one, you're in a slasher movie from the 80s. The other one, you're just back in the 80s where there's a slasher. Yeah. So that in and of itself is difference enough for me. So we're going to review this based on what it is, not what it isn't. Because The Final Girls, to me, is one of the best horror movies to come out in the last decade. I absolutely love that movie to no end. And so this one, if I was going to compare it, had a lot to live up to, but I wanted to go in and give it its own shot, which I did. And this film was funny, quite funny. I laughed a lot during it. There were for as laughter dense as the first act is, there were long stretches of no laughter after that. But it did circle back around to funny lines here and there. But I feel the denseness of the laughs was much higher in the first act than the second and third act.
Yeah, I mean, it got into it pretty quickly, right?
Yeah, fairly.
It kind of out the gate, like, shit was happening, which I appreciate. I'm like, yes, let's get to it. But yeah, no, there was some things, like, we kind of discussed things on the way here. A little bit. There was just some things that, I enjoyed the movie. I thought it was funny. I thought it was fun. But there were things, you know, if we're like I said, you know, if we're getting down to the nitty gritty of things, like some things just kind of didn't make sense. And you said it best. I think it was very loose.
Yeah.
Very loose.
This movie's script needed some tightening.
Yeah.
I think. And the way I put it to Susie, I mean, this is still in overall thoughts, right? Before we break it down on a deeper basis, but I expressed to Susie that it's very much, you know, it needed tightening. It was a looser script, and the easiest way to sort of give the metaphor for that is a shoelace, right? So if your shoelace isn't tied tight, there's a high chance of unraveling along the way.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of missed things here. There was some things that felt like they were setups for something that never came. A couple of things, actually. And so there was a looseness to the script that I felt like could have definitely been dialed in more. Because this movie, as is, I mean, I would say that this movie is like a B minus maybe. I feel like it had the potential to be A minus to A territory.
Yeah.
Were it tightened up.
Yeah.
So it's still enjoyable, but it's just not as good as I feel like it could have been.
Right.
And then you do have to, of course, deal with the conceit of the time travel aspect. Yeah. Which, you know, there's a lot of, you know, buying in that needs to be done in order for you to be okay. You have to either be like, okay.
Yeah, you cannot go into this with very high expectations. Like, you have to go into it like, it's just a movie. I'm here to enjoy. Yes, it's just fun. I'm here to enjoy myself. Do not go into it like expecting things to be like
really well thought out, like in the final girls.
Yes, yes, because it wasn't.
Yes.
It was fun all around. It was good, but there was just things that didn't make sense.
I agree. It fell short in a few spots. It was still enjoyable overall. But yeah, let's get into sort of the more nitty-gritty details. So the story itself is about our main character, Jamie. Thank you. I knew it was a J, because it wasn't an evil glyph, which we found out. But yeah, so there you go. That in and of itself was an inside joke from the movie that made her laugh, because there are some funny jokes in the movie, and some that are leaned on a couple of times. Yeah. But nonetheless, it makes it fun.
Are wild.
So yeah, that's one of the best ones. So yeah, we follow this high schooler Jamie as she and her friends are living their lives, and she is having a rough relationship with her mother, whom she doesn't seem to relate to very well.
I mean, stereotypical mother-daughter, teenage-daughter relationship.
Exactly. And a father that's there to be played for comic relief and stuff like that. But played by a funny actor that you guys would know. He's been in a ton of stuff, from Scary Movie to Dead Man on Campus
very nice
to even more.
His face again.
Yes, yeah. And so it's a regular enough setup. There's a teenage girl that learns about the fact that there were murders 35 years ago that her mom knows about and has been preparing for ever since. Friends. It was her friends. Yeah, all three of them were friends. But I don't know that we knew that right out of the gate. That's the thing. I don't know that we knew they were her friends.
Well, she even said, like, you know, it was. I understand that your friends died all these years ago,
That's
but
right.
sometimes
You're
I
right.
wish she would just let it go.
You're right. So yeah, they were her friends, and so we get this setup, and then it turns out that her close friend, Miss Shipka's close friend, has entered into the science fair with a photo booth time machine.
Typical.
So if you can buy into that conceit, then you're in good shape. And that's not a spoiler. That's first act stuff. So it's. I don't think that's giving anything away. There's a mode for it happening.
It goes into
you knew it had to
really
happen.
Quick.
And I think they probably alluded to it in the trailer a little bit too. So, but yeah. So essentially something happens, and I don't want to ruin what happens, but it brings the killer from 35 years ago returns, and during an attack, the time machine is triggered, and it sends Jamie back 35 years ago to 1987,
October 27th,
where it was the first day, or it was the day the first murder took place. All three murders happen over the course of like 3 or 4 days, and she's there, and she wants to try and stop it. And how successful is she? What happens? And do events stay the same, or do they change because she's now back there doing things? It's all the usual time travel questions, and I do like that they gave a little bit of a shout out talking about Back to the Future and Endgame, which Avengers Endgame spent a good chunk of conversation talking about all the time travel movies that could be relied on and stuff. So it was I liked that little interaction, because they talk about the preeminent time travel movie, Back to the Future, and then they talk about Endgame, which deconstructs all time travel movies after a fashion in a brief conversation. So we find out, that things aren't necessarily set in stone, but can she stop the killer before things happen and before she herself has to pay consequences that she is trying to avoid right out of the gate? Again, just without spoiling things. So, Susie, how did you feel about how the story played out, the story itself?
The story as a whole, like I said, if you're don't go into it with like very high expectations. I thought it was fun. It was a good story. It was fun. It was campy, and just like I said, it got right into it, like action, it started right out the gate. So the whole movie, like you're not waiting, but I mean, things I can't say, I don't want to spoil anything. But the story as a whole, I thought it was good. Again, like storytelling, things that were kind of put into the light and then all of a sudden taken away for no reason, rhyme or reason to it. There were things that just didn't make sense.
There were things introduced that were in turn abandoned.
Yes.
It was kind of weird. Like,
show something and then never gets explained.
Not just show something, but build a whole thread on something and then have it go absolutely nowhere.
Yeah, absolutely nowhere. It didn't make... So there was a couple of times where things like that happened. And so it kind of makes you...
That's where I think the tightening up of the scripts could have really assisted with this movie. Again, it was fun, but there were lots of holes. There were lots of holes that could be, driven through, so to speak. But the story for me played out fine. It wasn't revolutionary. It was pretty, it's not terribly different from things that we've seen in the past. And it was just done with a little bit of different flair, but not different enough to make it like a unique viewing experience. It feels like it was a mishmash of different things that we've seen done better in other films. But it was still a competent outing and still fun. Again, if you already subscribe to Prime, watch it. It's no skin off your butt, you know what I mean? Just throw it on and see if you like it. Some people will like it more than others. We fall pretty much right in the center, but it was still a good time. We saw it at a press screening, so we saw it for free, so that works for us, we got to see it on a theater and stuff, but yeah, the story plays out fine. It didn't really blow me away or anything like that. I just feel like the story itself could have used some tightening, and it would have made it a much stronger product. Now, let's segue into the acting, which I think everyone did a fine job. There wasn't anyone in the film that pulled me out of it by any stretch.
I think everybody did a really great job. Yeah.
The past version of her mom stole a lot of the scenes that she was in. I thought she was really good at what she was doing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily make her your favorite character, but that does mean that she does a really good job at her job. Yeah. So, acting-wise, how did you feel about everyone?
Like I said, I think everybody did a good job. I don't think anybody overshadowed one or another character. I think that everybody...
It did feel very ensemble-y and strong.
Everybody played off of each other really well. Like I said, there really wasn't one character that stood out more than the other ones. But I think it was a good group of people for this movie. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I agree with that. So let's get into the filmmaking. It was pretty standard, right? Nothing really stuck out to me as like, wow, that's groundbreaking cinematography or anything like that. The time travel instance, the time travel stuff was interesting enough. It was portrayed a little bit differently than we've seen in the past, but it was still interesting, at least.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. The filmmaking was fine. Like, I didn't find any issues with it. But it didn't really blow me away with its uniqueness. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there was nothing that stands out. It was just a good, basic movie.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much what it boils down to. Sound design wise, it was fine. I actually quite liked the music in it. I thought they did a good job picking tracks and having fun with that. The sound design was pretty good. I mean, there wasn't anything that they had a lot of stuff to really make super creative or anything like that. Like, a lot of times when slashers are stalking their victims, like, they take an opportunity to build the sound design and have the slasher sort of toy with the person. That didn't really happen in this one. The slasher just kind of went whole hog after people. Yeah,
just went at it.
and it wasn't really suspenseful or anything like that. So, yeah, I mean, all of that went fine. Let's talk about the effects, though. So, there wasn't a ton of gore, but I didn't feel like we were lacking gore, necessarily.
No, it's definitely not a movie for gore.
No, but the gore we got was relatively practical, you know? There wasn't a lot of CG and stuff like that. The time travel stuff had a little bit of CG augmentation to it and stuff like that. But, yeah, the effects were fine. I didn't feel like they were lacking by any stretch, but they didn't overwhelm me either, you know?
Yeah.
It was just, it's another slasher with a knife. Like, that's part of my problem with the Scream movies. It's like every kill is either throat slash or stabby. Yeah. And it gets really old after a while, and this is another killer just with a knife that's either throat slash or stabby. And it's like, okay.
Nothing
it
to
is
write
what it
home.
is.
Yeah, it's nothing to write home about. You know, it's just like your basic slasher movie.
Yeah, essentially.
So again, don't go into it with super high expectations. But...
It's a basic slasher movie with a time travel conceit. And while I think personally that Happy Death Day 1 and 2 and even Freaky, the Vince Vaughn body swap
I
one,
like that one.
I think those are really stellar horror comedy examples from recent years, and this just didn't reach the level of those. No. This was B tier in my opinion compared to those.
Yeah, I have
those
to
films.
agree.
But it's not bad.
No, it's
just
not
bad.
Great. It's just it's a basic slasher 2023
Are you calling it a basic bitch slasher?
I'm calling it a basic slasher.
All right, so yeah, I think that's going to do it for our thoughts on Totally Killer, you guys. If you've seen it, let us know what your thoughts are in the comments down below. Are you excited about it? Were you not sure about it and now we've swayed you away from it? I don't know. Let us know any and all thoughts down below. We greatly appreciate you taking the time to watch, especially if you're up to this point. Thank you to all of our patrons for supporting the channel. We greatly appreciate each and every one of you guys. Until next time, though, I've been Cecil Laird.
I'm Susie Von Slaughter.
And remember, stay scared.